Hey Grand Archive fans, welcome back to another Community Spotlight video. In today's Community Spotlight, we are going to be talking to Lineage Break Cam, the co-host of what I think is the longest running consistent Grand Archive podcast, which is Lineage Break. Cam has a very interesting perspective coming from a lot of different anime card games and now managing Webway Games, local game store. And as the co-host of Lineage Break and the world's #1 Arasana fan, Cam has no shortage of opinions. So Cam and I are going to talk about all things related to Grand Archive, casting, gameplay, growing the game, and the retailer perspective. And I hope you find this conversation a little bit enlightening as we are marching towards Worlds 2024, which is going to be a fantastic experience where Cam and I will, of course, get the opportunity to share the stage casting our favorite game for you all. So grab a snack, settle in, and I hope you enjoy this Community Spotlight with the one and only Lineage Break Cam. What's up, everyone? It's Dan with Main Deck, and we're back today with another Grand Archive Community Spotlight video, this time with the one and only Lineage Break Cam. How's it going, Cam?
Hey, how's it going, man? Happy to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. And just for a peek behind the curtain, the day that we're recording this, we just had the announcement of both of us being on the caster team at Grand Archive Worlds as well, which partially spurred me to be like, I gotta finally get the Lineage Break guys on here. So we'll start with Cam, and then we will get Steve on later. So
sweet, yeah. Super exciting day to have finally be able to tell people. It's been at least I know that the peek behind the curtain. I think Dan's known for a bit longer than I have, but I've been it's been hard to people like message me and ask have you heard back or whatever, and I have to lie to people. It's a little tough.
Yeah,
so
yep.
I'm glad that finally the announcement's been made, and we're both very excited to be casting Worlds this year.
Yeah, it was, I think I had a number of messages where I just literally didn't, I'm sorry to whoever did this, I didn't respond. I just left it on red. I don't know what to say, because they're just poking pretty directly.
Right.
I had to be kind of suspicious to some people too. They're hey, you're not playing in Worlds? Because I have my team. They're like, it's team format. So everyone's like, we got to pair up into a trio up and everything. Have fun, guys.
Right.
Kind of just awkward a little bit, but it's now finally all out in the open. And what a wonderful group that TM32 put together. I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, it's such a talented group. Not only the brilliant casting team that we're going to have, but of course the production team as well. So just super exciting to be part of. I had the privilege of being part of that team for nationals, and they're just so amazing. So I can't wait to be in one of those productions again and have such talented casters like yourself, behind the desk.
I appreciate that, the kind words. You actually, you probably have more, well, at least with Grand Archive, you have more direct casting experience now.
Sure.
I do too. So we'll see. But I do want to talk about your experience at Nationals a little bit. But first, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, so this is our Community Spotlight series where we just grab people who are kind of sort of, popping their heads out in the Grand Archive community, and we're just chatting. We're going to chat for a little while, but I recognize that there are going to be some people who watch this video who maybe aren't familiar with your Lineage Break, Cam. So
Sure.
You want to take a second just to talk about kind of where people might know you from, or where they could know you from in the future?
Sure. Yeah. So, like Dan said, my name is Cam. I run a podcast called Lineage Break. That's all Grand Archive. We've been running it since, we started before Kickstarter was even fulfilled. Yeah. So we started before we had any cards at all.
You were one of the first ones.
Yeah. We played that joke up a little bit that when we published our first podcast episode, we were like 12 hours before Creative Shock posted theirs. So we take that to heart. We are the first Grand Archive podcast. But yeah, I run a podcast with my co-host Steve, where every week we talk about Grand Archive news, stuff like that. We're not we're not winning a sense or qualified for the World Championship. We're just people that really enjoy the game, and it's all about us sharing our passion for Grand Archive, more or less.
I think that just reminds me of this general topic, which I think you can definitely chime in on too. But when it comes to content creation, for anything, but especially trading card games.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people have there's a stigma that they don't feel like they have anything, or people will want to listen to them because they're not, you know, they're not top aiding every single major event that comes
Right.
out, or even any major event, or even necessarily even traveling, to some of these events. But you and I as well are, I believe, I like to think, proof that you are absolutely welcome to, contribute content in whatever way that your sort of passions align for this
Mm-hmm.
hobby. It's almost like people. Do you feel as like people gatekeep themselves a little bit out of doing content because they feel like they shouldn't be doing it, or for any reason, if they want to?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. We hear that a lot, and there's for anybody who's in the Grand Archive like main Discord channel, there's a whole thread of people that are like trying content creation, and we have a great group of content creators for Grand Archive. But like you said, people are so it's hard to put yourself out there, right? And they're worried if they don't have something like unique to bring to the table, or they don't have some sort of accolade, like you said, that they can rely on to get people to watch their stuff, that nobody's going to watch it. And if you, of course, I'm sure you and I both know, if you put a whole lot of time into something and then nobody watches it, even if you're not expecting, to be a millionaire and do this, full time, you want people to watch the stuff that you put out. So I think something that not a whole lot of people know, even the people that watch my show, is this is my like fourth podcast that I've done. So I've been doing it for a while, and definitely there's plenty of things that I've made on the internet that nobody watched. So it's all about just like putting yourself out there and just, being passionate, being authentic, I think is the most important part.
I think, what I would just like to see is more people who just have a unique passion, something about the game that they're excited about, who I guess just can get over that stigma a little bit, and just
Right.
like just do it, just put yourself out there. And like you said, there's on the main Discord for Grand Archive, there are pretty much every content creator who does Grand Archive hangs out in the main Discord at least some amount of time. I'm regrettably not there as much as I'd like to be, but I have too many sheets of cookies in the oven or something.
Sure.
I'm just kind of all over the place. So if I get pinged, I'll pop in anytime for sure. But there's a great support network there too. There's that thread that TM32 started. I think Shinja started it. That was just like, content creators should be talking to each other, collaborating, like working with each other, coming up with how to promote the game, how to help each other make the best content possible. And that kind of stuff is a great resource for anyone who does just want to try it out. Like, go for it. Just post your stuff up there. Like, even make a private video and just be like, can anyone watch this, and give me some feedback. You'd get tons of help, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really understated how supportive the Grand Archive community is. I know that you play a whole bunch of different TCGs, and I've had that part of my past as well, where I've played lots of other games and tried to do content creation, maybe a little bit less than I do for Grand Archive, but in sort of bouts for other games. And it just, like, I can't stress enough how supportive the Grand Archive community is compared to almost anything that I've been a part of so far.
I will say that there are some communities for card games, and especially if you start looking at like the bigger card games right now, it really, it's lonely trying to get in there and be a content creator for it. As someone who's dabbled in like making content for so many different games, it's like, if you were to go to any major card game typically and try and produce some content, put a video out there and then try and show it to anybody, you actually a lot of the time just get the door shut on your face. It's like, no, we don't want you spamming your own, links to your own stuff, self-promoting like that here. Like, get out of here. We don't, you're not welcome, more or less. And that's, I talk about the advantages of small card games a lot, and this is a very niche advantage, but it is there, in that, like, you can start your content creation journey with a smaller card game and have the benefit of this just tight knit community who's like, wow, another content creator. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how experienced you are. Like, this is so cool. Like, thank you for making this. And you can build up from there and then do whatever you want after that. But that's a benefit.
Yeah. Everybody improves over time. Right. And so it is nice to start somewhere where there's way less, it feels like, unjust criticism, I guess, is a way to
Yeah.
put it, which is what you'll get, if you put out a card video for whatever giant card game. You're gonna be met with either nobody watching your videos or being met with like ridicule, right? Because it's easy to make fun of people through the anonymity of the internet, right?
Way too easy.
But yeah, if you start with something small like Grand Archive, and you and I both have sort of found our home in these smaller niche card games, which just feels so much more personal, which I think is really great.
So, Cam, if I can delve a little bit into your past here, so you have dabbled in other card games, then you settled in Grand Archive. Can you talk a little bit about your history of sort of previous card games and maybe what made you end up with Grand Archive right now?
Sure. Yeah, I have a long history with card games. I started playing Magic the Gathering when I was maybe 13 or 14, still in high school. As I'm sure a lot of people have that same similar experience. And that was now, God, 14 years ago, dating myself a little bit. But so I started playing Magic, and I was very much an LGS kid. I grew up going to my local game store like 3 or 4 nights a week. That's where I met most of my lifelong friends at this point. So I made a lot of my social connections through playing card games. But over the years, and I know this is not a unique experience, I've become a little bit disillusioned with what Magic has been doing. There was a time, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I walked away from Magic, and mostly because the job I was doing at the time, I didn't really have the free time. But when I came back to playing card games, I was actually playing a lot of Weiss Wars, the Bushy Red card game.
Okay, nice.
Because as I'm sure you can tell, this is my home that I'm shooting from today. I'm a big anime fan.
Yep.
So I was playing Weiss Wars a lot, which love that game to death. Love the people who play that game. My lord, is that a terrible competitive experience to play Weiss Wars.
You got to be careful. So I've tried to say that in some videos before, and I get some comments from people who are very ingrained in the Weiss Wars competitive community. And everyone's got an opinion on the internet, and we can leave it at that, I guess.
So yeah, hopefully those people don't watch this deep into the video to find me. I did really love that game, and I'm a super competitive, driven person as far as TCGs go. So I would travel at all the events to play Weiss, and I do really love that game. But it got to a point where it really wasn't meshing with me anymore. And about that time, which was right around the end of the pandemic, I guess, a friend of mine showed me Grand Archive, regrettably, 2 or 3 days after the Kickstarter ended.
Yeah.
So I did not get the chance to Kickstart, but they showed me Grand Archive, and I did some digging into it, and I joined our lovely Discord community, which was very welcoming and helpful with questions. And then I watched this little video on the internet by Main Deck Dan here on how to play Grand Archive. And me and Steve, my co-host, really enjoyed it, and sort of just serendipitously, I was talking with him about some of the content that I used to do on the internet and how much I missed podcasting, because I hadn't done it in 3 or 4 years at that point. And we decided to, start playing Grand Archive and to start a podcast. Our first episode we filmed 6 or 7 days after we learned how to play the game. And then, the rest is history. And now Grand Archive is basically all I play. I play a lot of Flesh and Blood as well, too. But those are my 2 games that I play mostly.
You have to love we literally just learned how to play this last weekend. So let's be podcasters for this game. Right. You had to have had a pretty immediate, I guess, connection with the game to get sort of that excited about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it becomes difficult for me to talk about Grand Archive sometimes, both on and off the air, because I'm just I feel like maybe it's just how I feel, but I feel like I'm so overwhelmingly positive about the game that people must think that I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, I'm too
I get
far
that
in.
Comment a lot. Don't worry.
So I feel like Grand Archive is just the perfect storm of everything that I want out of a card game. It's the art is gorgeous. I think they make the best collectible cards in the trading card game space, period. They are fantastic, and so that goes a long way as big waste money on anime stuff guy. Um, but the problem that I have with a lot of these Eastern style anime card games is they all have like a sort of I don't know how to describe it, but they have a very similar play style. A lot of the games that come, like Yu-Gi-Oh and the Bushiroad games, all have this play style, which is not what I connected with, right? Because I played Magic 15 years ago,
Right.
and so I think what really hit home for me for Grand Archive is it's such a like Western designed game, and it borrows a lot of those things from stuff like Magic and Hearthstone and all of these games that I grew up playing. So it has the art style that I like, gorgeous cards, the gameplay style that I like from the other side of the world, and of course like the community is fantastic, right? So I think like the combination of all of those things just makes the perfect storm for like what I want out of a card game.
So you're talking a little bit about the Eastern style game design. I tend to kind of pin that as a few different hallmarks. They tend to have a focus on randomness. Things out of your control tend to be a positive. Where often in sort of the Western school of thought, I guess it's about minimizing randomness. Actually, it's like having an acceptable amount of variance. So then that's it. That's all we want. So you see those, you see mechanisms like trigger checks and like damage, EX burst from Final Fantasy or whatever, shield burst from Duel Masters. You can name so many different. They all do that. They all do stuff like that, and they also tend to use those in particular as a catch-up mechanism in the game. This idea that as your opponent is winning, as they deal damage to you, something happens where you take the damage into your hand, or you're able to, as you take damage, you're able to get to a stronger form. You played Weiss a lot, so that's baked straight into that game. You're clocking, and then you get to level up, right? So was it either or both of those elements that sort of drew you away from those?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously variance feels bad, especially in a competitive setting. And like I said about Weiss, I don't want to harp on it too much, but that is something that like comes to the forefront in a competitive event where, of course, there's all sorts of decisions that you can make. And that game particularly, the whole skill ceiling of that game is minimizing variance. Like all of the best players play that will be, doing all these complex math equations to know what their percentages are to hit X cards in your deck, right? But there are times where you do all that calculation and it doesn't matter. And that part does feel really bad. I played a lot of Final Fantasy as well, and I agree that EX burst mechanic is really cool. I think the cool part about these like Eastern, Japanese style games is that the games are always so close. So like they're terrific fun to play because they're balanced around that, those catch-up mechanics. But it means when it comes to that like competitive integrity, there's something missing there for me. And I think that's maybe why I moved away from Magic a little bit too, because the game is the progenitor of all of these card games, of course, but their resource system has some issues, right? Like it leads to games that you feel like are sort of out of your control. And one of the things that I love so much about Flesh and Blood and also Grand Archive is that they're so very low variance, and all of your cards do something, and they always can be used in some way. So even if you like draw a bad hand and you don't see any of your Erupting Rhapsodies in the top 30 cards of your deck, there are still things that you can do with your hand, right?
That's fair. That's fair. I mean that was the gamble I took, and it's it does feel like, I agree completely with Grand Archive in particular. It feels like there are, I guess the way I would put it is in those games like Weiss Schwarz, there's nothing you can do. Really, you just kind of run headfirst into the randomness. You can do the calculations. As you said, you can play around and play to the best odds possible. But at the end of the day, every deck has the set amount of just random stuff that's going to happen. And it happens. And that's it. And in Grand Archive, I've always felt like at the very beginning of the process, before you even sit down to your first game, your deck building, you have already all the choices in front of you. Is like, how much do I want to play into this variance being a thing? I always thought one of the most brilliant parts of the design was actually the advanced element system.
Yeah.
The right away, what I likened it to, and I kind of toss this to you in a sec to see if this rings true for you, but like I likened it to the land system for Magic. except in a way that to me made a lot more sense. I'm actually a proponent of the land system in its own ways, but I
Sure.
totally understand the perspective people take as well. But the idea that in my deck, I'm going to choose X number of cards. These are my advanced element cards in Grand Archive, and these are cards that they are only resources when I draw them until very late in the game when suddenly they become the best cards in my deck.
Mhm.
Very late, depending on how you build your deck, of course. But um, and I have the full power over that now. I have the full choice. So like, I could run 20 advanced element cards. I can play a ride deck. I can run 30 advanced element cards in my deck and have a bunch of cards that don't do anything. But then when I get to that late game, it's like, okay, now like I'm doing so much more than you could ever dream of on your turn.
Mhm.
Or I could run none and I completely eliminate the land problem. It's just everything in my hand is playable at any stage of the game. But if I don't close the game out soon enough, then my opponent who took the gamble and put some amount in is going to have the edge up on me because they play Ghost of Pendragon because they're smart. They play the
Right.
best cards
Sure.
in the game.
Yeah.
And like, well, okay, good job. Yep, you did that. But it was the fact that the agency that you have at the very beginning when you're building your deck. When I saw that like mechanic first play out, is that and like the resource, it just put the fact that you put the cards down and pick them up again, and like those two things, I was like, there's something really really cool going on here.
Yeah, I think it's such a terrific deck building game, and I think so much of Grand Archive, which of course does have a very high skill ceiling, but so much of it comes down to how deep the deck building is that a lot of the success you can see with archetypes come down to how you, yeah, like you said, decided to play with that resource system. So we've seen success with decks that completely ignore the advanced element system and just go for consistent aggressive game plans, but the advanced element cards are the most powerful in the game. So people that leverage that and can get the extra time that they need to play those cards really can see success with it. And so yeah, I love that it is a choice where in some other games it's not. How you need X amount of lands in your deck to play the game at all, right? But I do love the fact that you can choose how consistent you want your deck to be, and you can choose to sacrifice consistency for raw power. I think it's just super cool.
Depending on the deck, sometimes just slamming those 4 ghosts in, like you don't need other
Right.
advanced
Yeah.
cards. Like, yeah, it's probably not going to hurt me, but it can certainly help me.
Right.
In a lot of games. So it's cool. I love the variety of decks that we've seen. Um, So you recently, speaking of just seeing a variety of decks, as we mentioned earlier, you were chosen to be able to cast nationals. You and I had a lovely little chat while we were
Yeah.
stalling for time from Matt's insane erupting
Yeah.
game that he barely pulled out in the semifinals, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. Right before the finals. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, how was your experience casting? Do you want to just tell people about like what was it like getting chosen, and what was the experience like working with TM32 and Red Zone Rogue and just doing the casting that weekend?
Yeah, I have nothing but glowing things to say. Casting is something that I've really enjoyed, but I haven't had the opportunity to do it on such a big stage as I have been for Grand Archive lately. It's something that I did when I was playing Weiss. I would cast local tournaments and stuff like that, and I got the chance to cast one of the Canadian regionals for DOA, farther back in the game's life, and I got to do that with Red Zone Rogue, which was an absolute pleasure. And so then when nationals came up, and I was lucky enough to get the spot, super glad to be back in the booth with Red Zone Rogue and Rav, who was there with me,
Rav,
is
yeah.
somebody that I've known for like 6 or 7 years. So it's it was just great
Yeah,
to
that's
be with
awesome.
both of those guys and get to experience it. But it was way more of a production than I could have ever imagined. I think the work that TM32 does is just like absolutely fantastic, and they'll never say that themselves. They're always very humble, but I think that the work that they do for production for Grand Archive is just wonderful. So I was just super happy to be part of that experience.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the production was insane. You guys did an incredible job.
Thank you.
I still need to go back and watch a few more games just to catch all of the commentary and everything. It's something that I've been just doing slowly in the background when I don't have to. Unfortunately, I'm in basically editing hell 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So, and if you've ever tried to, I'm sure you've maybe tried to edit and listen to something in the past, and it just doesn't.
Can't do it.
It just it doesn't work. It's very, very difficult. But yeah, I mean, you guys just knocked it out of the park. It was during day 2 in particular when I had a lot more downtime, as I was either getting dunked on or like just like I think it was such a blur. I think it was Pickle Sword. Was it Pickle Sword in the last round of day 2 where he just said, "Man, I'm wiped out. Do you just want to take a draw here?" And I was like, "Whatever, man. That's fine. We're at the very last table. Like,
Right.
who cares?" That's good. So I got the pleasure of sitting down in the comfy chairs and just enjoying watching the stream, which was honestly just a super chill experience, except when Silidar would walk up to me. Not walk up. He sat down for a while and then started like Grand Archive triviaing me. like asking a really obscure, like, did you know there's a way to do this? And I'm like,
Right.
no, but now I'm like puzzling. Like I pull up my phone, like pull up index, like, okay, how could you possibly do this in Grand Archive? Like, gotta find cards. So, little stressful when that happened, but otherwise an enjoyable experience. And I'm really looking forward to getting on the stage with you at Worlds. And we don't know what our schedule's like at all.
Yeah, not yet. The info's been like slowly, coming together. We still have like 6 weeks until the event. So yeah, not exactly sure what we're doing yet, but yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a great time. Nationals was a terrific event, and can't understate how great the venue was at Game Guys down there in Houston. It's just a terrific store. The fact that they had those like rows of comfy chairs and a projector screen is just so crazy to me. But the thing about Nationals is it was so much more of a tournament, right? Like everyone was there to play, and it was very high stakes. Of course, these guys were competing for, the most prestigious invite that you can get in Grand Archive as of right now. But I missed that sort of like fun community stuff that we got at, Ascent, Houston, Auckland, Ontario, whatever. So I'm really looking forward to not only, of course, Worlds that we're going to be casting, but all of the cool, like, fun extra stuff that they're going to be doing at Worlds as well.
Worlds is, I mean, okay, like it's fine. If you're watching this video, we're just going to be gushing about Grand Archive. Hopefully you're cool with that too. I'm just that's what you signed up for here with this video. So recently we had an announcement from whatever. I'll just say Yu-Gi-Oh announced that they're making their Worlds. Only invited people get to attend Worlds, and there's no side event whatsoever. In my opinion, one of the worst mistakes you can make in your organized play program, because Worlds is supposed to be, the way I view it, should be a celebration of the game. It should be every single player it's within their means should want to attend your Worlds event, because that is how you get everyone together, build that energy, build that excitement. That's how you create the next generation of your content creators. That's how you create the next generation of your competitive players, by just creating the just giant like social energy spirit bomb at a single event. And it's so weird to me to just go, nah, just don't bother coming if you didn't get a qualification for this. And I'm so glad to see what Weebs is doing. Is like, I mean, we have not only the main event, we have an Ascent, but not only an Ascent, it's team trios basically from Magic, but
right,
team 3-person team event, and Path of Steel, and a cosplay contest, and a Mercurial Heart pre-release special event, and first edition booster drafts, and like, I mean, it's everything. It's everything there.
Yeah, it's such a testament to the Weebs team how like robust the game's organized play is. For they just made an announcement as of recording today about like a stream that they're going to do for the anniversary. The game's not even a year old yet. Like we're getting maybe the most robust like world event that I've been to, other than like I Magic circa 10 years ago. Like this is the biggest organized play event that I've seen for anything, for a game that's been out for like 10 months now. So yeah, I think it's just amazing what they're doing. I'm super excited. I did hear that hopefully the MRC event is going to be late enough that you and I will get to play in it after a
Yeah.
long day of casting.
Oh, I'm hoping.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. I would like, yeah, I wouldn't turn down the casting gig for anything,
Sure.
but I'm very hopeful I'll get to join people in at least one of these fun events. Still undecided if I'm going to cosplay anything just to snag like a promo. How about, are you, would you do that? Are you thinking about doing that at all?
I couldn't. I have so much respect for people that cosplay that I just I can't put myself in that position. That I just never fathom doing it. One of our Trent from Lineage Break, that some of you might know, you see him on the podcast sometime. He is building his own cosplay. I'm very proud of him. So nothing but respect for those people. But I couldn't do it. What were you thinking about cosplaying?
Well, see, I'm not a cosplayer. At one stage in my life, I tried to be a cosplayer. I tried to when I say that, I guess maybe I'm gatekeeping myself by saying this, but I tried to make one cosplay. I was tried to make a cosplay of Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, which is my favorite Final Fantasy, and you guys can get out of here if you think that it's not a great game. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But I tried to put it together, and then I think one day I put the wig on, and then I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right to me for some reason. I just, and then I shoved it all in a box, and it's in my closet, over there.
you bust that one out, to repurpose it.
I ended up not getting quite enough belts, believe it or not. But I was thinking, for the promo, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe I could put something together, and I don't know. Should I spoil it? Sure. If you're 30 minutes into this video, you get to hear what I'm thinking. I think that's fair. I'm considering, and don't hold me to this, I might end up not doing it. I'm considering doing a gender shifted erupting Rhapsody girl.
Nice.
Is what I was thinking. I was thinking if I can find a little a male pink wig, I don't know, find a Natsu wig from Fairy Tail or is close enough, right? And then just I can wear a black suit and cast with it even or something, instead of for a little dress, and maybe just put a few homages in a little white strap somewhere. So she's got, I don't know, she's an anime girl. She's got all sorts of little pretty things all over. So I had to find somebody to give homage to that. But big thing is I don't have a violin. So I kind of have to figure out some kind of a violin system, I think, if I really want to sell it. But I don't know. I have 6 weeks to decide. Well, I have less than that to decide, but at some point I have to figure out if I'm actually going to do it, because I would like to it's a promo. You get a free promo if you just wear something.
And it's so sweet. I love the art on that cosplay promo. I'm going to be very jealous of everybody that gets it. But here, assuming that this video comes out with ample time before Worlds, here's your call to action to, do whatever you can to help Dan find a violin or, a Natsu wig or whatever.
All right. I mean, if people start saying, "Hey, I got this for you," you're good, then I mean, I won't be able to say no at that point. I have to do it for the people. Okay, Cam. So real quick, I had a question for you before I forget about this. So I think you guys have explained this probably several times, and I'm very dense, so I just never put everything together. So when you guys do your podcast, when you do the Lineage Break podcast, you're filming from a game store, right?
Yeah. So my day job, I run a local game store. It's called Webway Games in Marlborough, Mass. Like I had mentioned earlier, I grew up at an LGS. I spent all of my days at my local game store, and that was even up until it's 24 or 25, 5 years ago. And unfortunately, that store that I grew up at closed over the pandemic due to a million different things. That makes it very hard to survive. But during that time, I was also between jobs, and my best friend Raph had, he was sort of putting his foot into that small business space, and he was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about opening a game store to replace our one that closed. Do you want to help me run it?" So now, just about 3 years ago, we opened up our store here locally. It's literally 5 minutes away from my house. And so one of those benefits from running the LGS is in the back room. I have our little closet that has the Lineage Break studio in it.
Nice. Nice. Cool. So you are, I mean, you're an LGS manager then,
Yeah.
right? So that, I mean, you can actually bring to this conversation a very unique perspective from a lot of the people that I have on the community spotlight. That from like an LGS perspective, how have you viewed how Grand Archive has been run so far? Like, is this something to other LGS owners and managers? Is this a game you ever like recommend to people? Do you see like long term potential in this? I don't know. Like, how do you approach the game from that perspective?
Yeah, we're a pretty small store, right? We just opened. It's just the two of us that work there, and we love that sort of like mom and pop game store feel. I never want to have, again, big shout outs to the places they held nationals, but like that's way too big for me, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
sure.
that's way beyond my depth. So we always have to be very picky about what we choose to support, and a lot of that comes, sort of something that we talked about at the beginning of the show here is it all comes from passion, right? So you have to support things that either I'm passionate about or my partner is passionate about. And so, of course, that's where Grand Archive came around. But the card game space is so difficult. There's so much competition, and it's really hard for any of these smaller card games to carve out a piece that belongs to Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, these things that are so huge and so ubiquitous. You can go into any game store in America, probably in the world, and find people playing a game of, Commander, right? So it's really hard for these new card games to carve out a spot. And I think Grand Archive has done a really good job in that regard. There's, of course, always things that can be improved. Something that I find really appealing from my business side, not my personal side, is that their pricing is really great for the LGS. So we do like actually make a decent profit when we sell Grand Archive. The fact that they have map pricing is terrific. One of the problems that you run into with some of these card games is they don't set a floor. So you get places like Amazon or these big box retailers that want to drive the profit down as little as possible, and they're making like $1 or $2 on a box, but they don't care because they sell 100,000 of them, right? So stuff like that really keeps the small local game store in play, and of course, the dedication to organized play is huge. We've had the pleasure at our store of being able to run store championships and regionals, just because we have a community and we care about growing it. And it's really awesome to see smaller games support that.
Do you think it like, well, how much table space do you have in Webway games? Just give me an idea of like, I haven't obviously been able to make it out there.
Sure.
It's far away from me,
Yeah.
sadly. So what's the store like? What's the space like there?
We're like 64 players is what we can run. So
Okay.
we're not really tiny, but we're like, very, very mid-sized.
Yeah.
So yeah, 64 players fills the house. And we have a couple of like dedicated miniatures tables to take up some space as well. But
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, one thing I've heard, and I have not unfortunately had the pleasure of really experiencing this myself yet. I don't know if have you ever gotten to go to Japan at all?
No, I wish.
Yeah. You and I, maybe Grand Archive can have a big ascent there or something, and we'll get
That sounds
invited.
great.
Yeah, let's do that. So I from what I understand about the culture there is that there's a number of card shops there that specialize in one. Japan has tons of card games available, like more than us, and they will just specialize on like a particular small game. Like this is the WeCross store, for example, and they'll be like, Japan's very compacted, right? So there'll be a small space, not 64 players by any stretch, but these shops will make their living on primarily this small game sport. They probably have some other popular games there that you can get, but like they focus on just this one thing and they run events for it. So I don't think that's really a viable route. Maybe you have a different opinion. I don't think that's really a viable route in the West here. I think you kind of have to support the big ones, but how do you feel about like the fact that you guys have carved out this niche for Grand Archive, which I assume isn't really being intruded on in any of the other stores in your area?
Yeah, it was like before we started running it at the shop, it was like pulling teeth for us to find anywhere that was supporting the game. Me and Steve made like laps around the entirety of Massachusetts looking for any of the stores that had like signed up for the Kickstarter. And there was a couple, but they were like, oh, one of our employees ordered it and we're not going to support the game. We just happened to get these Kickstarter boxes. So yeah, it's been great to sort of like carve out our niche in that place. But that's sort of our like mantra at the store, which I think is probably pretty different from your like typical LGS. Is I refer to us a lot as like the island of lost toys, where we
Okay.
run a lot of really smaller stuff. Like we have a extremely small Magic community because we don't like compete in our local area for that huge Magic crowd. We spend a lot of time on smaller games like Grand Archive and Flesh and Blood, and we run a lot of like little niche miniature games and stuff like that. So I think it's really about finding your audience. I would love to be one of these like dedicated card stores like in Japan. I've had friends that have gone over and sent pictures and stuff because I'm always curious to see like what other stores look like. And I think it is just it's amazing that they are stores, like you said, that not only are like 100% card games, like of course we do the miniatures side of the hobby as well. So even that seems like crazy to me that you can sustain yourself off 100% TCGs, let alone
Right.
like one of them. Like you're the Wick Sauce store. I would love for that to be possible in the West. I think they have the huge benefit that I assume a lot of these are in like these big metropolitan cities, and so you can be that one store that only does that one game that's within walking distance of 10,000 people or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll find that with so many people in that area, you'll find that enough
Right.
people within that like 1% of 1% of people
Right.
that are interested in your niche card game. Um, do you see, I mean, this is maybe a softball, but do you see a bright future for Grand Archive? Do you see it's like, how do you think it's doing as far as just like hitting goals of growing and improving and developing itself going forward?
I want more info on this
Okay.
because I think about it a lot. I really do because
Yeah.
I have nothing but love for this game, and so I try to like poke the developers when I don't feel like I'm being too intrusive. Be like, hey, how are you guys doing? Like, is how's the business been? And all of my interactions that I've had with them, they've said very positive things about the growth of the game, and we see like event entries are huge. Houston and Ontario and even nationals were all like in that 200 plus ballpark of players showing up worldwide to these events, which I think is terrific. We've seen, in our own microcosm, some great growth for Grand Archive. I think that their organized play software is huge. I think it's
Oh,
like maybe the best organized play software I've ever used, and they
I
just put it out.
I think it
It's so
is.
good.
I think it. I've like you. I've used
Right.
many, and I've done the thing where softwares have been so bad. I've used KTS, Konami's tournament
Yeah.
software, just to run stuff, which isn't a great thing to have to use, but it's
Right.
better than what some of the other options were. But yeah, Omni's great. Wow.
Yeah, it's so good for growth. The store finder is terrific, and I'm really curious, at least locally, to see how the existence of Omnidex will affect like our regionals that we have coming up. Of course, if you guys are watching this and in Massachusetts, come down to Webway 420 for our regional. But I really hope that the availability of like the store finder and the premier event tab and stuff like that is going to drive more people to these events. But I think they've done a really great job so far at growth. The thing that I find the most um, sort of exciting and reassuring about Grand Archive is anytime that they make a mistake, and mistakes have been made. Like, of course, like we said, Dan and I are drinking the Kool-Aid, but they have made missteps, and we talk about that on Lineage Break a lot when these sort of big, dramatic events come up. But they always have the right response to it. I think the thing that I point to a lot is the issue that they had when FTC was released. It was a little bit overprinted. The box price dropped really low. The singles prices were all in the like sub $1-2 category for these URs, which is not great for your second set out of the gate. But I think they had a really fantastic response to that, where they created that FTC redemption system for the creative shocks, which sort of pushed all of the singles prices up a little bit higher, rebounded box prices, stuff like that. Like when they have a misstep, they can accept that they've done something wrong and correct accordingly. And I think that just shows how great they are at running the game.
In our area in particular, I think we have a little bit of Alchemical Revolution left, but
Mhm.
FTC's gone at this point.
Yeah.
It's gone everywhere, and the prices will, I think, continue to, they've been stable and they'll continue to creep up over time because I think we talked about this a little bit at Nationals, but FTC is a good set. Like, it's a small
very
set,
good.
but it's a good, like, there's a lot of playable cards in that set. And since Omni launched also, we've seen in our local area, we've seen our attendance creeping upward with events as well. Omni has been, I would say, I mean, there's a couple of things, but like the big thing was the introduction of Omnidex. I think the having the ranking that you are actually accruing every week which has tangible and desirable rewards. You were an old Magic player, so you were looking at Omnidex and you're seeing exactly what the devs were thinking when they made this. This is what, I mean, this is a better, I'll dare say, a better version overall of what Magic was doing years ago.
Yeah, it's the old player reward system, right? It feels like Grand Archive, and you guys, anybody that I'm sure anybody that's on Dan's channel that has a familiarity with TCGs can see, Weebs of the Shore is analogous to a certain other company, and so many of the decisions that they make feel like a love letter to things that they loved about growing up playing TCGs, and it feels like we're sort of in that second generation now, where a lot of these newer card games are taking things from their predecessors and the things that sort of created this medium that we all love, and keeping the little parts that they like here and the little parts that they like here, and creating this really great product. So yeah, I'm really super happy about the player rewards. I am only a little bit super unhappy that I don't nearly get as much chances to play as I would like, and I think those Scry the Skies are going to pass me by, but
yeah, it's I mean, they're why did it have to be Scry the Skies? It's such a playable card. It's such a beautiful art, and it's got your girl on it as well, which is like,
it's so tough. Obviously as a content creator, I make the choice to do stuff like casting, which I'm super happy to be doing. I don't ever want people to think I'm not happy to be doing that. And I'm also, of course, an LGS manager, so I run all of our events, and of course, since I run all of our bigger events, Store Champs regionals, I don't get to play in them. And then when I do play, I play arguably one of the two worst classes in the game. So I'm really not doing myself any favors.
No, you're not. Promos. You need to just sleeve up an erupting deck and hit up one of these other regionals and just spike some value right there. That should rocket you up pretty close to getting at least the regular. Maybe not. You're probably not going to top 100 from that, but I bet you can get yourself pretty close to getting the foil Scry the Skies, the normal one.
Yeah, I got one regional that I'm going to go to in a couple of weeks. There's one down in Jersey. It's like 3 hours away from us. So I'm going to go there. I will probably play a real deck and not Arisana. I know. I'm sorry, Internet. It's going to be upset at me, but
no, I think
probably try to play a real deck.
I'm going to be proud of you if you sleep up a real deck for that one, because I can appreciate it too. I am a guy, I'm a player in these card games who, I will absolutely, test against meta. I will play meta decks to learn them, but I would much prefer to be playing something that beats meta decks. That is unexpected, to some degree. Some degree of unexpected deck is my favorite thing to do. So I would feel that sort of that being pulled in two different directions that you probably feel going into that too. But you would like to be known as the Arisana player, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've always been the guy that doesn't like having the target on my back. So I always look for a deck that is good and meta relevant, but I never want to be playing the best deck because I know that everybody is sideboarding for the best deck and they're preparing for their matchup for the best deck. And then, I obviously won't be as skilled as they are and they will blow me out, right? Like that's what happens every time. So something that I really like about GA and some other card games in the space, but I think GA does it really well, is I used to be super into fighting games, so I make a lot of analogies to that when we play card games. And something that I really like about the way the Grand Archive is set up is that people that sort of devote themselves to a deck or an archetype or a class even get real advantages from putting in the time. We talk about people like Matt G, who's going to be playing at Worlds, who only ever plays Erupting, right? He's the Erupting guy and he only plays Erupting. He's been doing it since the beginning of the game. And I love that the dedication to your class or your character or whatever will give you these huge rewards if you put in the time. So I would love to do that for Ari. I'm right there with the Sylvie players, where I think no matter how much time you put in, it's really not going to help you. But thankfully, MRC's right around the corner. We're going to get some support, I'm sure.
I think just today, as we're recording this, Silidar also teased on Twitter. I'm sure you saw. Yeah, you did, because I think you liked my goofy meme response to it. But what looked like a tamer automaton animal type line.
Yeah, rabbit too. Yeah, that's like so many. Yeah, I think it was tamer, automaton, animal, rabbit. I think something like that.
Yeah. That's that is. I mean, there's not even just in the recollection deck. We're going to be getting some real potential support for some of these classes in MRC as well. So
yeah, I mean, the game is so small right now. We're only going into set 4, so not everything is going to be super great right away, right? That's just how things work. Like the cream is going to rise to the top, and so all things can't be created equal, or card games would be boring, right? Like if everybody's just as powerful as everybody else, where's the individuality, right? Like where does your deck do something better than somebody else? I think as the game gets older, we'll get to the point where, at least as far as I know, we're staying with these 7 classes.
Yep.
And so as the game gets older, even if like the new Tamer comes out and she's not very good, in set 8 or whatever, there will be a Tamer deck that is good. So I think we'll get to a point where every class is playable, and once we get to that point, it's really going to reward those people that are dedicated to their sort of class. But it is going to take a little bit of time to get there. I think we're at the point now where, obviously, I do have a biased opinion about Cleric, but I think we're at the point where 5 of the 7 classes are like very meta competitive. So I think once Tamer and Cleric get there, we'll have a really nice spread if you can just take whatever you want to Worlds.
Do you mind if this is going to get a little towards shots fired territory at
Sure,
another card game, but
sure.
One thing that impresses me about Grand Archive is that this dev team, and this is something I saw people on the Kickstarter when commenting, random people making this card game. They're not even known. It's not like it's a Magic. All these games like this person used to work for Wizards of the Coast and now they're making a card game, whatever, or any number of accolades like that. But Weaves of the Shore is composed of people who none of whom were names in a TCG space necessarily, but the balance job, while not perfect, obviously, has been, I think, pretty remarkable for just being 3 sets to even at Fractured Crown, even 2 sets in, I felt this way, for coming from such a non-storied background. Do you agree with that?
I think it's insane. What Dan really is trying to tell you, the developer out there in the world, is do better, right? Like it's a team of 10 people that have never done this before in their lives that create this magical game that they keep. Like you said, sometimes there's some issues, there's some outliers, but they keep the game as balanced as they can. I think I can't understate enough that I think Proxy's Vault is maybe the greatest TCG idea of all time. It's insane how good it is for the health of the game, for the competitiveness of the game, for the community. Even cards like Stone Scale Band that Tamer's still having some trouble, right? But they put out this card that just gives those people that are playing that underrepresented deck just a little bit more power, a little bit more, fun tools to work with. And it's not something they have to do, right? Like Proxy's Vault doesn't make them a penny. They don't sell the cards. They give them away for free. Yeah. Right.
It costs them time to develop the thing, and then they print them. It costs them that, and then they have to give them out to everybody. It's I resolved a Stone Scale Band once, but probably more than once. But I played a Sylvie deck for 1 week that used it, and I just have a memory of the one game where I did it. I used it all correcely, and my opponent was like, "Oh wow, wait, that card's really good! It's really
absurd."
Sick.
Yeah.
Suddenly, it's like a time walk almost. You get 2 turns in one, basically the turn you level and use it.
Yeah, I play against a lot of Tamer locally.
Okay.
We have a resident Tamer player, Trent, on the Lineage Break team. So I see a lot of Stone Scale Bands, and that card is nothing to sneeze at. It is quite a good one. So yeah, I think it's great that they're supporting the health of the game like that. Even something that happened really early on, which sort of got swept under the rug because the game wasn't nearly as big, is that they pushed forward nullifying lantern out of FTC into DOA Alter just for the health of the game. Like, there's no reason that they had to do that. They were just like, oh, erupting's a little scary. We're going to give you this card 3 months early for no reason other than to support the health of a growing game. So, do better. Like,
I'll go ahead and say it's like I think of Bandai in particular. If I don't mind dropping that. Here's my channel. I can say whatever I want.
Sure, yeah, of course.
It's like the development is. I hear people. I think this is like the second time I've said this in like 2 weeks. Actually, I really need to stop repeating myself. But I hear people saying like, "Well, it's just a set one meta. It's it's going to be unbalanced." Like, that does not have to be the case. That's right. Not how this has to be. You can actually do better than that. And I've been impressed. I've been impressed so far. But I agree. Once we get deeper in, it's going to be so rewarding to the people who just lock in. They're like, you know what? I really like the mage play style. I'm just going to keep kind of jamming mage games. And we see randomly, right now in the meta, you'll get these players who just spike with mage. They'd be like, yeah, right. No, actually, mage is still good, by the way. I lost to mage last weekend at our locals.
Yeah.
I could not protect against. Turns out I didn't have enough protection for 3 arcane blasts, 3 fireballs. That was like 1 blast too many. Like, okay, sure. You got me.
Yeah, I mean, it's these harder archetypes that require, like, of course, every deck in Grand Archive is very difficult. But there are some that you're rewarded by getting to play with the more powerful tools, right? So, stuff like Rai, where they've removed most of his powerful tools, really benefits those players that put in the work. We saw some of them, unfortunately, not make it all the way at Nationals, but we saw some really talented Rai players. Saw some, like, really wild decks at Nationals, which I think is just a real testament to people putting the time in. I talk about, Jimmy Lee's deck all the time. Yeah. The Trisket deck that we saw in round 1, like so many very so many super interesting decks. And people dedicated to like sort of not just picking the deck that won the last tournament and taking it. And I feel like I see that a lot more in Grand Archive than I usually do in other games, where most of the time people just go on the internet, they see whatever won the last biggest tournament, and then 70% of the people are playing that. Is just not the case in Grand Archive.
And once people actually start slotting temporal spectrometer in the right decks, I'm telling you. I'm going to
try it out. I've heard you talk a whole lot about it, and if there's anything that can help my terrible deck, maybe this is it. So
maybe
I'll try it out.
I didn't think about an Arasana. Actually, that might be a really good call. You might. Yeah, I like this. Hey, hang on. There's something here. I like this. Yeah. Let's bounce some ideas back and forth. Correct, by the way, yeah. Send me your list, and we'll just take a look, and we'll see. So
they're all bad.
Yeah. Oh no. Okay. Before we sign off, I have 2 things. First, I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to have you shout things out, whatever you want. But Sounds good. Question is, so this is a fun question that I've been thinking about, and I'm going to do a few more of these community spotlights, hopefully before Worlds. I'd love to get more of our casters on, just so people can have a chance to get to hear from them a little more than they usually do. So here's a question. I think I'm going to pose this to everybody and just get their take on it, because I think this is totally an opinion. So, Cam, let's say instead of casting Worlds, you were qualified.
Ooh,
okay.
Yeah.
Big day.
Mm-hmm. Big day.
You're qualified for one of the North American slots, but it is not Matt G's spot. Okay. It's someone else's. Doesn't matter who. Okay. But Matt G is there. Does your material deck or sideboard include Nullifying Lantern for this tournament?
I think 100% in the 80. I think probably main deck in a blue deck.
And that's given that there may be exactly 1 erupting player in those 16 players.
Yeah, I respect Matt G as a player. I don't want to let him get one over on me for sure. Fracturizing that lantern out of my main deck.
I like it. No. I mean, that's at Nationals all day. I went up against a number of opponents who did not respect erupting, but that's in a tournament with 100 something players, whatever it was, and some number of them are on erupting. Some others are on Xander. There may be some Xander players at Worlds. I have no idea. But non-Luxem, like the Rending Flames You version. But I think it's an interesting proposition, because if you could just
Yeah,
assume someone else will beat Matt, which is a tall assumption to make, but they're all worlds qualified players, so they're all good. Uh, if you assume someone beats Matt out and you never have to face it, you could be down a material deck slot the entire day,
that's true.
the entire weekend. So I don't
Dan,
know.
what if I pose a question to you
Oh,
on
sure.
that same note, right? Since you're a caster too, of course. We got to get your opinion, right? Let's assume that you're playing an allies deck and you're playing your three baubles, your fire bauble, your water bauble, your wind bauble. We saw at nationals a lot of people not playing that wind bauble because of low wind representation.
Mm.
Are you respecting wind players like Cabin in the tournament?
So that that is an interesting question too. I saw that tech in the event, and I thought it was very fascinating. Um, in our local area though, and in the main deck team in particular, we
Mm-hmm.
actually respect wind quite a bit. We
Yeah, I know you guys were brewing up a spicy wind deck
Oh, it's
for
better now. I'm
nationals.
telling you that I did the profile on it. Spectrometer,
Yeah.
man. Like we were missing that. I can't stress enough that when we got that in, and then we've also started messing around a little more with Beseech the Wind after I recorded that video too, which Beseech and Spectrometer are nice together.
Yeah.
Really good. So it continues to tweak. It continues to tweak. But once we unlocked that, it was like, hang on a second. Cam, at locals 2 weeks ago, I spectrometered. No, it wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was last weekend. It was game one against the Rye player. I
Mhm.
spectrometered to my level 3, and that turn, I think it was that turn, I played Majestic Spirit. The turn I leveled.
Wow,
Okay,
that's pretty good.
You are able to save so many cards that it was feasible to have enough cards in hand to get a spirit down. So um it's it changed everything. So anyway, long response, but
You're
I
playing that wind bubble.
I would play the wind bobble, because I know that actually we talked to Cabin in the last community spotlight. He talked about how they feel like that was a mistake and they should have just played water.
Oh,
but
interesting.
But I still think that, going into this metagame, there's going to be some people who, I mean, I don't know for sure that Matt G's on erupting,
Right.
but he's got the highest likelihood of anyone, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But there are going to be players who are going to play some best decks, meta decks. And then there's players who, whether it's True Champion Gaming or others, who are going to try to beat those. And I respect that Wind actually beats more decks than people necessarily always want to give it credit for.
Sure.
So I would keep that in the main. I would feel like I just would feel dumb if I took it out.
Sure.
Just like you would feel dumb if you took
Right.
out Lantern and you're like, round 1, Matt G. You're like,
Yeah, like
well,
the biggest tournament you've ever played in, and you're like, I'm going to choose not to play this, and then round one, it bites you, and yeah, you just don't want to be in that position. But I'm glad to hear you so high on Spectrometer. Like I said, I'm looking for a deck to play at regionals. Maybe I'm looking at that that list you posted, and
it's meta dependent too. I like to give that to everybody. It's just the fact that like the biggest weakness of Spectrometer is that Varric and Acolyte and Spurn to Ash and Disintegrate all exist.
right.
And that's all they need to do to
Sure.
be a threat. But like I was saying in the video, which decks are playing those? And if they're erupting, you're already siding out for Quicksilver anyway.
Right.
And if they're not erupting, like what deck are you talking about? I don't, like there are some very niche decks that one will enter in 100-player tournament or whatever. And I will take that. I will take those odds every day of the week, because in the games where they don't have any answer, they'll either fracturize it. You're like, okay, cool. Like fine, it's reservable now. Like that's not terrible. Or you just leveled to 3 for free. And I don't know, Cam, if you've ever leveled to 3 for free, it's a pretty big advantage.
I'm gonna dig it out of my binder. I'm telling you, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, all right. I love it. Okay, Cam. Well, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. It's been really fun chatting with you, just going back and forth and getting to get your perspective on things, because you have such a unique perspective. Passionate player, passionate podcaster, passionate manager of your LGS, and supporter of all sorts of games. And I learned you're a fighting game community veteran, which I have absolutely nothing in common with, but I know a bunch of people who are, and I respect it. So what I want to leave you with is I just want you to go ahead and let people know where they're going to find you and anything you want them to find about you, which can include any upcoming tournaments like you mentioned earlier. So go ahead, say everything about you.
Sure. Well, yeah, thank you for having me on the channel. I've wanted to collaborate with you for a while, so I'm glad that we finally got the chance to do it. If you guys want to find me, I do a podcast. It's called Lineage Break. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Lineage Break. We record the show live every Friday at 12 p.m. EST, so you can catch us live, and then we post last week's episode at 2 p.m. that same day. You can find me on Twitter, also at Lineage Break. You can find my store, Webway Games, in Marlborough, Massachusetts. We are running regionals for Grand Archive, so if you're in the New England area, that's going to be on 4/20 in Marlborough, Mass. I think that might be it. You can find me and Dan casting Worlds May 10th through 12th this year. So,
and links for everything he mentioned that I can possibly find will be in the description below. So just scroll down there and click everywhere. Follow, subscribe to Lineage Break, get their numbers up. Attend. I when I can, I try to make it to the live podcast. It's not very common that I'm able to with work and everything, but when I can, I try to be there. So it's a lot of fun. They are very interactive with the audience, asking questions, answering everything. So it's a good time, and I definitely recommend people attend those when they can as well. All right. Well, Cam, thank you so much. This was fun. We will have to do some more collaborating in the future.
For sure.
Not just when Shinja tells us to collaborate together. Not that I mean about Worlds. This was my idea. World. I just realized that people could take that the wrong way. But
no forced gun to my head or whatever.
You guys got to do an episode together of something. Like no, this was just for fun. So, but yeah, thank you so much for joining, and thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we will see you guys in the next one.